everyone, hope you're all keeping well on this lovely Wednesday. Today we're going to find fractions of shapes. So yesterday we had a look at splitting shapes into two equal parts, and that's called finding half of a shape. And this is what our fraction half looks like in numerical terms, and here is half written in words. So we're going to have a look and find, we might be finding half of a shape, we might be splitting shapes into 4 equal parts and 3 equal parts as well. So let's have a look and see what it is we're going to do today. So here are some examples of some fractions. We've got half here, where your whole has been split into 2 equal parts. Okay? So that one's called a half. This one is a third. So just think about first, second and third. And this is where your shape has been split into 3 equal parts. Okay? And you're going to find one of those 3 equal parts to colour in. Looking at your fraction down here, this is what a fraction is made up of. This is what a fraction actually means. So your number on top is called a numerator. Number on top is called the numerator. And that's how many equal parts we're looking for. So most of the time, fractions that we're going to be looking at, our numerator is going to be 1. Sometimes it might be 2. Very rare cases it will be 3. And the number underneath is our denominator. And that's how many equal parts that make the whole. So if you've got a circle, for example, and you've split it into 4 equal parts, your denominator will be 4. Okay? And let's say if I coloured in one of those equal parts, my numerator would be 1 to show a quarter. Okay? So we're going to do a little bit more of that, so don't fret if you're thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what Mr. Gilbert's talking about. Don't worry, it's fine. We'll keep going, we'll keep doing it until you guys are a little bit more comfortable. So I've got a square on the board here, and I've split my square into 4 equal parts, okay? So that means that my denominator is 4, because that tells me how many equal parts there are altogether, okay? Now I'm going to colour in one of those equal parts. So my numerator is 1. And that fraction is called a quarter. Okay, so we're going to be mainly looking at halves, thirds and quarters. Okay, now I'm going to draw that square again. I'm going to split it into 4 parts again. So my denominator is 4. Now this time I'm going to colour in 2 equal parts. So my fraction now is 2 quarters, okay? Now 2 quarters is quite an interesting fraction, because it's exactly the same as a half. Because if you can see that square, exactly half of that square has now been coloured in. So 2 quarters is the same as half. They just match up, they marry up beautifully together. Now let's have a look at this square here. Again, I'm going to split him into 3 parts. And, 4. And my denominator is going to be 4. And I'm going to colour in 3 of those equal parts. Okay? So my numerator is going to be 3. And that fraction is called 3 quarters. And it works exactly the same for any shape and any amount of equal parts that you're making. So for example, if I have a circle, I'm going to split that circle into 3 equal parts, okay? Not entirely accurate, but you get the gist. So I've got 3 equal parts here. My denominator is going to be 3, because there are 3 equal parts all together. And we're going to think about colouring in one of those equal parts. I'm going to choose this one. So this fraction would be, because there is 1 equal part coloured in, my numerator is going to be 3, so my fraction is a third. Okay? Now if I was to do the same thing again, but this time make that a bit smaller. Okay? This time I'm going to colour in 2 equal parts. My fraction would be denominator 3, because there are 3 equal parts altogether. Numerator 2, because there are 2 parts coloured in. Okay, so let's move on to having a look at some other shapes. Shade 1/4. So as I said before, when you're asking somebody to shade a quarter of a shape, you're asking them to shade one part out of 4, okay? Because there are 4 equal parts all together. And looking at that numerator, your numerator tells you to colour one of those. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to colour in one of those equal parts. Now, messy colouring, I know, but you get the gist. Again, here's a triangle, and it says shade half. And in brackets underneath, I've said shade one part out of 2, because my denominator is 2. That tells me how many equal parts there are in that triangle. There are 2 equal parts. And my numerator tells me how many of those equal parts to colour in, which is 1. That's my number on top. So I'm going to colour in 1 of those equal parts. Okay? Shade 2/3 of this shape. Shade 2 parts out of every 3. So we've got 3, so we just need to shade in 2 of those equal parts. So my denominator, just checking that fraction again, my denominator is 3. My rectangle has been split into 3 equal parts. My numerator is 2. That means I need to colour in 2 equal parts. And it doesn't have to be specific 2 parts. It can be whichever 2 parts you wish. You can colour in these 2, colour in those 2, colour in these 2. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. As long as there are 2 equal parts coloured, it's the same fraction. Okay. Now this fraction over here, it looks like a little bit like a flag, doesn't it? And the question is asking you to shade 2 parts out of 3, because the fraction is 2/3. Okay? Now because there are 3 parts altogether in this shape, it's really straightforward. All you need to do is shade in 2 of those parts, because you've got 3 equal parts. Fraction's telling you to colour in 2, and that's what you're going to do. 1 and 2. Okay? Now this one's slightly trickier, because I'm asking you to shade 3/4 of that shape. Okay? But we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 equal parts. My denominator says to colour in, my numerator, says to colour in 3 parts out of possible total of 4, but we've got 8. Now, if you remember your doubles and halves well, you will know that there are 2 groups of 4 in 8, okay? So let's cover up this part of the shape first of all, and pretend that this is the full shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to colour in 3 parts out of that top 4. Again, any 3, doesn't matter. And then again underneath, because we've got another 4 underneath, so we're going to colour in another 3 parts of that. Again, any 3, it doesn't matter. Okay? So that's shading 3/4 of that shape, because there are 2 groups of 4. So we need to colour in 1, 2, 3 on top, 1, 2, 3 on the bottom. Okay? And again, that fraction is the same as 6/8, because there are 8 equal parts altogether in this shape. We've shaded 6, so 3/4 is the same as 6/8. Okay. Now this rectangle here, we need to colour in 1/4 of this rectangle. Okay. My numerator is 1, my denominator is 4. We need to colour in 1/4. But as you can see, there are more than 4 equal parts to this shape. There are 8. So have a think about what it is you think we need to do for this one, and how we're going to figure out how to shade in the correct amount of squares. Take some time to think. Pause the video if you want to. Absolutely up to you. Okay. So you might have noticed that, a little bit like the previous question, this rectangle has been split into 8 equal parts, which is 4 on top, 4 underneath. And my fraction says colour in 1 part out of every 4. So because there are 2 groups of 4, I'm going to colour in 1 part up here and 1 part down here. Okay? Group of 4 on top, group of 4 underneath, 1 part out of those 4, one part of these 4. Okay, which makes 2/8. Okay, so 1/4 is the same as 2/8. Now, this is your reasoning, but what I'm going to show you is the sheet to do beforehand. Okay, so this is today's sheet. On the left-hand side, I'd like you to name the fraction. So have a look to see how many equal parts there are all together, which is your denominator. Then have a look to see how many equal parts have been coloured in, which is your numerator, and that's your fraction to write underneath. Down here, I'd like you to have a turn at shading the fraction that's been given for each shape underneath here. Over on the right-hand side, you're going to be shading. Now, these ones are going to be a bit trickier because, for example, here it's asking you to shade a half, but you've got 4 equal parts, okay? So it's just stepping it up a little bit more. If you wish to do this side only, that's absolutely fine. If you wish to challenge yourself, move on to this side, perfectly fine as well. Okay, so here is your reasoning. Can you find a quarter of this rectangle? So this rectangle has been split into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts, but they're not equal parts. So my advice would be to try and split them all into equal parts, then try to find a quarter of the rectangle after that. Explain how do you know that you found a quarter, and then what fraction is the red part of the whole circle, and explain your reasoning. So I'm really looking forward to seeing your fraction work today, and good luck!